How to detach your identity from being right. Let's go deeper into the transformation. Here's the truth. You cannot break the need to be right by forcing yourself to stay quiet, because the problem isn't behavior, it's identity. The shift happens when you learn to separate your opinion from your worth, your knowledge from your identity, your mistakes from your value. To begin this, I teach a method I call the internal observer technique. Whenever you feel the urge to defend, pause and ask yourself, what am I protecting right now, the truth or my ego? This single question creates psychological distance. It interrupts the automatic emotional loop. It forces self-awareness, and over time, it rewires your reactions. Story: David's breakthrough. Now let's look at another example, a man named David. David was a leader in a corporate company, respected but intimidating. His team said he dismissed others' ideas and shut down questions. During a session, I asked, "When someone challenges you, what do you feel?" He paused and said, "It feels like I'm being exposed." That word, exposed, told me everything. He wasn't protecting his argument. He was protecting a deep fear of inadequacy. Once he learned how to observe his emotional triggers instead of acting on them, his leadership transformed. He told me, for the first time in my life, I can listen without hearing an attack. This is the power of emotional awareness. Practical strategy: the 3-second neurological reset. When your brain senses a threat, like being corrected, your amygdala reacts instantly. You can interrupt this by a simple technique. Pause for 3 seconds before responding. Why? Because those 3 seconds allow the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, to take control. In those 3 seconds, ask, is this actually important? Is this worth losing peace for? Am I reacting from fear? Can I let this go? This tiny gap in time creates emotional mastery. How to disagree without defensiveness. Here are 5 expert-approved phrases that help you stay grounded. 1. I see your point. Let me think about it. 2. That's a perspective I didn't consider. 3. I may be wrong here. Let's explore it. 4. Tell me more. I want to understand. 5. You might be right. Let's look at the facts together. These phrases don't make you weak. They make you emotionally flexible. And emotional flexibility is a sign of inner strength. How to heal the root emotion. The surface behavior is arguing. The root wound is fear. To permanently break the emotional dependency on being right, you need to heal the underlying fear. 1. Fear of losing respect. Practice self-validation. Not every disagreement is a threat to your worth. 2. Fear of losing control. Ground yourself with deep breathing or anchoring techniques. 3. Fear of inadequacy. Remind yourself, being wrong doesn't make me less intelligent. 4. Fear of being judged. Build tolerance for discomfort through small exposures. 5. Fear of emotional abandonment. Strengthen internal emotional safety. Once the root emotion calms down, the urge to prove yourself dissolves. Advanced healing. The ego stabilization process. Most people don't understand their ego. The ego is not the villain. It is a defender, a protector, a guard. When the ego feels unsafe, it becomes aggressive. When the ego feels safe, it becomes quiet. To stabilize the ego, practice these. A. Acknowledge the ego. Say internally, I feel triggered, and that's okay. B. Thank the ego. You're trying to protect me. I'm safe. C. Reassure it. I don't need to win this to be okay. D. Choose the response consciously, then speak calmly, not defensively. This process retrains the emotional brain and reduces the intensity of your reactions over time. It's the argument that ended a marriage. I want to share a powerful story. A couple I once worked with, let's call them Aria and Lucas, loved each other deeply, but Aria had a habit of correcting everything Lucas said. One day he told a story about their vacation. She interrupted 5 times. That's not how it happened. No, the restaurant was on the other street. No, it wasn't Tuesday. It was Monday. And Lucas finally said, I feel like nothing I say is ever good enough for you. They weren't arguing about details. They were fighting for emotional validation. This pattern, over time, eroded their intimacy. Aria wasn't trying to hurt him. She simply didn't realize she was using being right as a way to feel competent and seen. Awareness is everything. A small emotional habit can slowly break the deepest connection. How to apologize without feeling small. Many people avoid apologizing because they associate it with humiliation, but a healthy apology actually increases respect. Here's a powerful structure. 1. Acknowledge the action. I interrupted you. 2. Name the emotion, I reacted defensively. 3. Take ownership, that wasn't fair to you. 4. Reassure safety, I'm working on responding calmly. 5. Restore connection, tell me what you were saying. This form of apology is strength, not weakness. When you feel the urge to fight, do this. Instead of arguing or defending, ask, what part of me feels threatened? Is it the child in you, the perfectionist in you, the abandoned part, the insecure part, the misunderstood part? When you identify the emotional part, the adult version of you can take over. This is profound emotional leadership. The 3-step formula to let go of the need to be right. After years of working with clients, I discovered a formula that works with almost everyone. Step 1, awareness. Recognize the trigger. Notice the physical reaction. Label the emotion. Step 2, detachment. Separate your identity from the argument. You are not your opinion. Step 3, response. Choose connection over competition. Choose understanding over winning. Choose peace over ego. This is how emotional maturity is built. Who you become when you let go. When you release the emotional need to be right, something incredible happens. You become more relaxed. People feel safer around you. Conversations become lighter. Relationships deepen. Your intelligence expands. Your confidence strengthens. Your self-worth stabilizes. You stop fighting invisible battles. You become a person who listens, understands, learns, adapts, and grows. That is true emotional authority. A final story, the transformation of Michaela. Let's return to Michaela for the last time. Months later, she told me, I didn't realize how much peace I was losing just to win arguments. She learned to pause, to breathe, to listen, to let discomfort exist without fighting it, to allow herself to be imperfect. And when she did, her relationships transformed, not just romantic ones, but friendships, work dynamics, even her relationship with herself. And she said something beautiful, I still like being right, but I don't need it anymore. That is emotional freedom. Last message. If you have the emotion of wanting to be right all the time, understand this. You are not flawed. You are not difficult. You are not controlling. You are human. You are someone who learned to protect yourself in the only way you knew. But you can learn a new way now. A way that brings peace instead of tension, connection instead of conflict, and confidence instead of fear. You can grow. You can heal. You can transform. And every small moment of awareness you practice becomes a step toward emotional freedom. Let me begin with a question I want you to sit with for a moment. Why does being wrong feel like a threat, even when no real danger exists? We've all been there. A simple conversation turns into a debate, then into an argument, and suddenly the room feels heavy. Your heart rate rises, and all you can think about is proving your point. Not because the topic truly matters, but because being right somehow feels essential to your identity. But have you ever paused and asked yourself, what emotion am I actually defending when I need to be right? What fear is sitting underneath this reaction? And is this behavior helping me or silently sabotaging my relationships, my peace, and my self-respect? Today, I want to take you deep into this emotional pattern, not just to understand it, but to master it. Because the truth is simple. The need to be right is not a personality flaw. It's an emotional wound. And wounds can be healed. Why we seek to be right? The emotional roots. You might think the need to be right is intellectual. It is not. It is emotional. In my work as a mindset and behavioral expert, I've seen the same pattern repeated hundreds of times, and almost always the root is one of these 3 emotional wounds. 1. The fear of being invalidated. For many people, being wrong feels devastating, not because of the mistake, but because wrong equals my voice doesn't matter. Wrong equals I'm not respected. Wrong, I am small. When someone grows up in an environment where their feelings or opinions were dismissed, they learn to protect themselves by clinging to certainty. You don't argue for the idea. You argue for your worth. 2. The fear of losing control. Some individuals feel safe only when everything is predictable. Being right, stability. Being wrong, chaos. And chaos feels dangerous. This emotional pattern is common in people who grew up around unpredictable parents, emotionally explosive households, strict environments where mistakes had consequences. So in adulthood, being right becomes a coping mechanism to regain emotional control. 3. The fear of feeling inferior. This is especially common in perfectionists, high achievers, or individuals who were rewarded only when they excelled. To them, mistake equals failure. Failure equals shame. Shame equals I'm not enough. So instead of feeling the shame, the mind fights fiercely to avoid that emotion. Sometimes the argument is not about the topic at all. It's about avoiding an internal emotional collapse. A realistic story, Michaela's pattern. Let me illustrate this with a client scenario. We'll call her Michaela. Michaela was confident, intelligent, and articulate, but she struggled deeply in relationships. Her partners always told her, "You never admit when you're wrong. You make everything about winning. You don't listen. You defend." When Michaela came to me, she believed her issue was communication. But communication was not the problem. Her relationship with vulnerability was. During our sessions, she revealed her upbringing, a father who was always right, a mother who stayed silent to avoid conflict, and a home where mistakes were punished with emotional withdrawal. So Michaela learned something powerful as a child. If I'm wrong, love gets taken away. As an adult, she wasn't fighting people. She was fighting emotional abandonment. And this is true for so many of us. The need to be right isn't about ego. It's about survival, emotional survival. Is wanting to be right always bad? Here's the surprising truth. No, wanting to be right is not inherently bad. In fact, it can be healthy in some cases, such as defending your boundaries, speaking up against injustice, correcting harmful misinformation, standing for your values, having confidence in your knowledge. The problem is not the desire to be right. The problem is when it becomes emotional armor, a shield against discomfort, a substitute for emotional safety. Being right becomes harmful when you react instead of respond. You argue even when the topic is trivial. You interrupt or invalidate others. You cannot tolerate being corrected. You feel attacked when someone disagrees. You avoid apologizing. Conversations drain you instead of connect you. When this happens, the need to be right is no longer about truth. It's about protection. The hidden costs of needing to be right. Let me be blunt here. The emotional need to be right can destroy relationships faster than betrayal, jealousy, or mismatched values. Why? Because it creates emotional distance. When someone feels unheard or invalidated, they pull away. Even if the argument ends, the emotional bruise stays. Unbalanced power dynamics. It makes others feel inferior, even when that's not your intention. Lack of trust. People stop opening up because they don't want to be corrected or criticized. Constant tension. Conversations start to feel like competitions. Loss of emotional intimacy. You can't connect deeply with someone who is always defending. And worst of all, it traps you. You become a prisoner of your own emotional armor. You cannot learn. You cannot grow. You cannot relax. You cannot be wrong. And that means you cannot be fully human. Human psychology. Why being wrong feels physically painful. Studies in neuropsychology show that being wrong activates the same brain region that processes physical pain, which means your brain literally treats being wrong as danger. This is why your body reacts when someone corrects you. Your chest tightens, your voice sharpens, your breath shortens, you feel defensive, your pride spikes, your heart beats faster. This is not weakness. This is biology, but biology can be rewired, and that is exactly what we're going to do. Midpoint call to action. Before I take you deeper into the practical transformation steps, the part that can genuinely change your emotional life, I want to invite you to support this channel. If this message so far is helping you reflect on your patterns, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment your thoughts, and share this with someone who needs this awareness today. Your support helps this content reach more people who are silently struggling with the same emotional battles. Now, let's continue. The moment of self-awareness that changes everything. Let's go back to Michaela. One day during a session, she said something that changed her entire emotional landscape. Maybe I'm not trying to win arguments. Maybe I'm trying to protect the little girl inside me who was punished for being wrong. That moment, that level of self-awareness, is where healing begins. Because once you understand why you need to be right, the compulsion loses power. Why admitting you're wrong is a sign of emotional intelligence. Emotionally intelligent people do something different. They don't tie their identity to their opinions. They can say, I didn't know that, you're right, I misunderstood, I stand corrected, not because they're weak, but because they don't fear being imperfect. Confidence isn't about being right. Confidence is about being secure, even when you're wrong. This shift is what I will teach you next, in part 2, where we break the actual emotional habit and replace it with a healthier inner structure. But first, take a breath. Let everything you've heard sink in.